What's going on, guys? This is Chandler Smith, and I'm so excited about this video because I've been getting asked this question a lot. And the question is, Chandler, I own a home, should I rent it? Because I need to move into another place and I'm not sure if I should sell my home or rent it. The reason you might be in this situation is either you've hit financial woes and you're like, man, I can't afford my mortgage anymore, I'm gonna go live with my parents, or you found a new home that you wanna buy and you're saying, well, here's my situation, Chandler. I've got this home I've been living in, but I don't think the market is good right now to try and sell it. So I'm thinking about holding on to it, renting it for a while I buy my new home, and then maybe selling it in the future. So I wanna help you decide if you should rent your home or if you should just get rid of it. So with that being said, let's jump into it. And the reason I wanted to address this question is I just ran into it with my brother who found their dream home they wanted to buy, and they were living in a condo, and they're like, hey, should I rent out this condo or should I sell it? Because I want to have the cash from selling it. However, the market right now with everything going on isn't great to try and sell, and so what should I do? And surprisingly, a lot of people find themselves in this situation. There are also a lot of people who've come into money and they want to buy a bigger house, but they also want to own an investment property. And they're saying, hey, should I just keep this as a rental and make money off of it? Or should I sell it and use that money in a different investment? And so I'm going to cover all of the scenarios and help you to decide if you should rent your place or if you should sell it and use that money somewhere else. Now, the biggest thing that's going to help you to make this decision is you first off need to decide how much this home is going to be able to rent for. Because if you don't know what it will rent for, there's no way you're going to be able to make an educated decision. The reason that I say this is if you've got a mortgage of $1,000 and you've got additional expenses with taxes, insurance, everything else of another $400 per month, you're at $1,400 that you're gonna have to pay every month on this property. So if the property rents at $2,000, this might be a good fit for you. However, if the property rents at $1,000, then every month that you rent this property, you're going to be losing money. Now, this seems like a pretty simple principle, but there are so many people that are like, hey, I want to rent my home, that way I can have an investment property, and they don't look at what their actual expenses are, and they just rent it for whatever they can, and all of a sudden they realize that every month they're losing money instead of gaining money. And so the first thing I would tell you is figure out what it rents for and make sure that you're making money. You have to have cash flow every month, or in my opinion, it is not worth holding on to a property. Now, some other people might disagree with me. They might say, hey, if you're in an area where it's appreciating 10% every year and you know this location is just prime and you want to hold on to that property because it's going to sell for a ton in the future, or you want to hold on to it because you want to gift it to a family member in the future, yeah, that's a different scenario and you've got to make that decision. But from a money perspective or a financial perspective where it just makes sense, do not hold on to a property that is negative cash flow. And that's what it's considered if your expenses are more than what rents are bringing in every single month. The next thing you need to figure out after you figured out what it would rent for is what your actual expenses for sure will be. Now, I just said you've got your mortgage and your additional expenses, but you've got to understand there are more expenses that come when you're dealing with a rental. You're gonna have a management fee if you have someone else managing the property. You're gonna have your lawn care, which you may have been paying, but you didn't really think of that as an expense because maybe you were mowing the lawn on your own. So you've got to remember that's something you've got to pay for. You've got to make sure that your utilities can be transferred to their name, or if they can't be, you've got to keep paying those and take those into consideration. You've got to think about the HOA fees and anything else that might be an additional expense. And then you have to plan for things that will happen with the property. I mean, you're going to have these little breaks and problems that will add up while someone else is renting it. And so you need to sit down with your management company and say, hey, what are these expenses going to be? I personally plan for an additional 12% of my rents in my rental property that's going to additional expenses for wear and tear or breaks that are gonna happen, that you're gonna have to call someone up and say, hey, can you go fix this in the rental property? So make sure that you know not only what your expenses were when you were living in it, but what they will be once you're renting it to someone, because you're gonna have someone else managing and taking care of them. And if you're gonna manage it on your own, you better do a ton of research to understand what kind of time commitment and how much money that's going to cost, so you don't end up saying, hey, I'll manage it on my own, my expenses will stay the same, and you end up in a deep hole where you're getting paid $5 an hour for the work you're doing with a little bit of cash flow that you're getting because of how often you're having to go over there and fix stuff up on your property. Now, once you've gotten all of these numbers so you can properly analyze your deal, now you've got to think about how much equity you have in a property and see what your real return is. What I mean by that is, if you own a property outright, you've got $100,000 cash that owns this property, you don't have a mortgage or anything, and you're only cash flowing $100 per month after your expenses, and that adds up to $1,200 a year. You do the quick math on that and you're saying, wow, I'm making a 1.2% return on my $100,000. Now, that's a very dramatic, over the top example. However, I've seen people where they've got a lot of equity in a home and their actual return on the money they have in the home is very, very small. When I buy rental properties as an investment, I'm purchasing them and I'm saying, all right, I've got 25% down. So on $100,000, I've got $25,000 locked up in this property. I want to be getting a 15 to 20% return on that money every single year. And so if you've got $100,000 locked up in a property and you're only getting a 1.2% return, again, in my mind, that investment doesn't make sense. Now, if you're one of those people that's just renting to bide your time because the market's crappy now and you know in 2 years we're gonna come out of all the craziness that's happening right now and you'll be able to sell it for a lot more, or maybe 5 years, and you're only getting a 1.5% return on it in the meantime, maybe that makes sense to you if that can turn into a 20% return because the market goes up that much in 2 years. But that's a decision that you have to make, and you want to analyze it properly. So look at how much equity or how much money you have in the property and look at what your actual real return would be after seeing what rents would be minus all of those expenses that you figured out to be able to rent it. Now, once you have all of these numbers, you can make an analytical decision. You can look and say, okay, this property has $50,000 locked up in it. So this will be my return after all of those expenses. And if it's a negative return, maybe you should sell the property. If it's a 1.2% return, maybe you should sell the property. But if it's a 10% return on the money you have locked up, hey, maybe that's worth holding on to and renting out for an extended period of time, because where else can you get a 10% return that will be that easy of a transition? And so once you know all of these numbers, then sit down and say, all right, what kind of return do I want on my money? Am I getting that return? If not, I'm gonna sell it. If I am, I'm gonna hold on to it. If I am 2 years from now, I'm gonna hold on to it. But now you know the numbers so that you can make an analytical decision. And if you're saying, Chandler, I'm way overwhelmed, I don't wanna learn all that stuff about renting, maybe you just sell it. However, if you wanna learn that stuff about renting, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit the little bell button, and then go binge out on all of my videos, because I swear to you, 2 hours worth of binging my content and watching the right videos will get you to a place where you're saying, hey, I'm totally comfortable renting this property and I am ready to rock and roll. Now, again, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to push the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell button. And if you want some one-on-one help with me, jump over to my website at chandlerdavidsmith.com. You can sign up for a 30-minute call and I can answer any questions that you might have to help you work through any situation or issue that you're having. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great day.